Welcome to Success in Brief. I'm your host, Rosanne Felicello. In every episode, we spotlight successful women in the law. We discuss with them their journey to success. We talk about the difficulties and the trade-offs, along with the highlights and the benefits, and about what success means to each of them. We hope to inspire you with these stories on your own path to success. Good morning. Hello, my name is Rosanne Felicello, and this is Success in Brief. I'm thrilled today to welcome my friend Elizabeth Malang to today's podcast. Liz is a partner at Ryan Conlon LLP, where she specializes in personal injury cases, insurance defense, and also maintains a commercial practice. Liz is also passionate about mentoring younger attorneys, especially women. Liz, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Liz also received her BA from Cornell and her JD from Fordham School of Law, and I'm thrilled to speak to Liz today to hear more about her success. So let's jump right in. Liz, what was your path to becoming an attorney?
Well, both my grandfather and my father went to Fordham Prep School, Fordham College, and Fordham Law School. So it was kind of instilled in me at a young age, not only to go to law school, but basically to go to Fordham. They were very enthusiastic about their love of the school. My dad actually grew up a few blocks from the prep and the college in the Bronx and was able to walk to school for all of those years. As an alumnus of Fordham, I understand the strong alumni tie to the school, and they were just always very enthusiastic. So basically, my dad had always told me no matter what I wanted to do in life, he just thought I should go to law school, that it was such a good background for if you didn't even want to be in law to go into business, or just a great education. And actually, he didn't practice law. He met some people in law school, and they opened up an insurance brokerage straight out of law school. So he was always a businessman, never really practiced. My grandfather, on the other hand, was a DA in the Bronx, was a medical malpractice insurance defense lawyer, was, I think, an assistant deputy commissioner of insurance, was very involved in politics. So basically, he was kind of I'm on his path. To me, a lot of things that I have done in my career kind of mirror what my grandfather did. So it was just something that I was always encouraged to do from a young age. Either be a horseback riding instructor or a lawyer. That was really what I wanted to do from like 10 years old.
Those are two good options.
Yeah. So I kind of let the horses go, but then I did always just have that goal in college to go straight to law school and kind of then figure out my path from there. And then just in my family, my grandfather did start out at the Bronx DA's office. So it was also a thing that, a great place to start your legal career is to start in a DA's office, so that you can get that courtroom experience, that litigation experience, and just actually being a DA is, to me, it was my favorite job I've ever had, and I loved it so much. So that was kind of like my next path in terms of wanting to go to a DA's office after graduation from law school.
So let's step back for a minute, because I hear that, I appreciate that the, going to Fordham and going to Fordham Law was sort of in your DNA.
Right.
But I understand that there was somewhat of a surprise or a story behind, when you found out you were accepted to Fordham Law. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So, so after doing, all the applications and getting, I think I tried to get everything in early on. I really had Fordham as my goal, and that was my dream. I actually had, because I was at Cornell, I was in Ithaca which is wonderful and lovely. And it can also be very snowy and cold and remote. So I had, like in the early, I didn't even know what a vision board was, but I had bought myself these postcards of New York City, Central Park, and I had like papered my wall in my apartment. But where like at my computer where I was doing all my applications with all these like scenes of New York. So that was really like, that was my goal. But I did, I applied to other schools as well. And like any good senior in college, I went on spring break to Cancun, Mexico.
Nice.
And so I just remember my dad calling me every morning. We'd be out, having fun in Cancun till all hours. And then, 8 a.m. I'd get a phone call in the hotel. And my dad would call and say like, I'm just waiting for your acceptances to come in the mail, and he'd call me and like what came and what school I got into, what school I didn't get into. And then I remember like on the Thursday of being on spring break, he called me and I got my Fordham acceptance. So I was beyond thrilled, but also, I probably had gotten home at like 4 a.m. And he called me, bright and early to tell me. So
that sounds like a great, that will always stick with you, right? I mean, how could you forget that?
No, could never forget. So just excited to get back and get into it. So
that's fantastic. So then after you went to Fordham and had a great experience, I take it?
Yes. Oh, such a great school. I didn't really understand. I think, I knew of it from my family and of its reputation. But when I got there and learned, the motto of Fordham is in the service of others. And I didn't really know that was going to be kind of my path in the beginning of my career. To be working in the service of others. And they really put so much emphasis on public service and public interest work. And that was really where I made all my friends and my contacts and really like got my start in the legal field. And so that was really important to me. And that is important to me to this day, even though I work in a private firm now. Just to have had that background and those experiences were really, really important.
Yeah, I mean, it's wonderful because it really does shape how you practice the law, probably.
Yeah. Well, I was always interested in public service, and I volunteered with many things through the years in terms of environmental groups in high school. And when I was in college, I trained to be a rape crisis counselor, and I did that in college. But then I got to law school and I got involved. They had a public interest resource center, which was tremendous. And the director of that, Tom Schoenher, who is since retired, he was terrific and just such a joy to work with, and really made law school more of not just going to class, not just like learning the law, but really participating in the community and doing things to, better the community, better the city, and to have that experience. So it's something that has stuck with me even, years later into private practice to try to be involved.
I think that's important as attorneys. We have a special role in society in some ways because we understand how the law works, and we're taught, we have these skills that we obtain from going to law school. And so it's important to try to use them to help others when we can.
Definitely. You're, as attorneys, we're in a unique position because we have the background in the law, but we also are educated in the systems and how to navigate the court system, and whether it be family court or housing court, or where many people don't even have the knowledge as to how to access those courts. So I think it is important to try to give back and and to help, because we do have a special knowledge that maybe other people don't have.
Mm-hmm. So you spent about 3 years in the DA's office, is that right?
Yep, 3 years. I was in the Domestic Violence Bureau the entire time that I was there, and I had the privilege of working for Charles Joe Hines, who was a pioneer in domestic violence prosecutions at that time. His mom, unfortunately, his mom was a victim, and so was he, of domestic violence growing up. And he really had put like such a strong emphasis on his domestic violence program in his office, and it was regarded nationwide at the time, and just had the best bosses there, and really it's such a great experience working there. When I was there, we were one of the pilot, well, I guess we got a grant to do a pilot of the first family justice center in the New York area. So I was asked, I got the privilege of going to San Diego on a trip, an exploratory trip, to observe their family justice center, which would be like an all-in-one criminal, family, services, everything, one-stop shop for any victim of domestic violence at the DA's office. And they did open it, I think, in 2005 in Brooklyn, and then it became a model for all the other offices throughout the city. But it was really such a great opportunity that I got to be involved with that. So
it sounds like it was probably very intense as well.
Yeah. Yes, working doing domestic violence prosecution was extremely intense. You really get involved in the very nitty-gritty of people's lives, and sometimes they want you to be involved and sometimes they don't want you to be involved. And it's a very fine line, and it was a position which it was not like 9 to 5, leave it at the office. Like, you worried about these people, at 3 a.m., like what's going to happen to them tonight if something goes awry. And it really was like a 24-hour a day job. Even if you weren't in the office 24 hours a day, you were thinking about it, you were working on it, you were worried. So very intense, very intense.
Did you ever consider continuing to do crim law as a defense, or what did you do right after the DA's office?
Right after the DA's office, I was looking to do something where I could make some more money. And that was really my main reason for leaving. And it just so happened that, so I worked, when I was in law school, I worked at a small personal injury law firm. It was just one partner, one associate, and myself. I was like the sole legal assistant, paralegal. So the associate that I worked with at the time had left and had become partners with 2 other attorneys. And he is the Conlon of Ryan and Conlon. And so when I was looking to leave the DA's office, we had stayed in touch. We were very good friends. And he offered me a job. I did not know what insurance defense, I didn't know the slightest thing about insurance defense or what that meant. But I was happy to have the opportunity to work with him again. And I quickly learned what insurance defense meant. I mean, we had been on the other side in terms of the plaintiff's work, but I didn't quite understand how things worked in the insurance world. And so I really didn't interview for it. I didn't really think about anything else, and I didn't interview for any other jobs. I packed it in at the DA's office and went to go work with Ryan and Conlon and one other partner. After about 2 years, we left that other partner, and then it was Ryan and Conlon from there on in. So, and it's going to be almost 20 years. In September, it'll be 20 years.
Wow. So almost 20 years and no interviews for a job.
Yeah. Well, here and there, maybe, but.
So you insurance defense, and you also do some personal injury work, and also some small commercial practice. Of those areas, what is your, what do you favor? Do you have a preference?
Well, the plaintiff's work, I would say, is more in line with the type of work that I had done, public interest type work, because you are really advocating for someone who is injured and who has maybe, no access or, no remedy other than, to commence a lawsuit. So I do enjoy working with individual people in that way and advocating for them. But I like it all. I enjoy it. I enjoy it all. I enjoy litigation. I really used to enjoy being in the courthouse on a daily basis. The last 3 years hasn't been ideal, but it's starting to come back. Just, the interaction with people. I'm not the type of lawyer who likes to sit in the office and write briefs for days on end. I prefer to be interacting either in court or arguing or in depositions or meeting with clients or what I would prefer to be in a basement doing a site inspection rather than write a brief. So
I don't know if anyone's ever said that before.
I spent almost 2 hours in a basement in Coney Island 2 weeks ago. So
that's on your mind.
Sometimes that's part of my job. No, but
that's interesting. I think I might choose the brief writing over the basement inspection, but that's just me.
Yeah, well.
Takes all kinds, right?
There's
a very.
You have to have someone who's willing to go into the basement.
Somebody has to go. Yes.
Yeah.
I've had to do that before. I remember when I first started my own practice, and I didn't really, I couldn't really pick and choose my clients. And I was actually doing a pro bono case to try to keep my skills fresh while I was searching for clients who could pay me. And this tenant had it was a tenant, landlord-tenant action, a business, which I had to learn because I didn't know that area of the law at all. And part of it was whether the tenant had been excluded from the space that was promised under the lease. That was like a defense to our, my client not paying the rent that was due. And so I had to go inspect, this basement to see if it was adequate for the use that was supposed to be used for under the lease. So that was interesting. But
yeah,
it's been a long time.
Yeah. Well, in the insurance defense world, quite often we have to go out to see whatever it is that we're defending, be it, in very mundane crack on the sidewalk, or, if it's a defective staircase, allegedly defective staircase, or a remodeled basement, which may or may not have looked like that back in the day or at the time of the accident. So, so we do go on to, especially if you're going to try a case, you want to make sure that you're familiar with the scene of the accident.
Sure.
No matter what it is, whether it's a criminal case and you go out to the scene, or whether it's a car accident, you go to the intersection and see what the traffic light is like. It's always important to go take a look at it.
I think that's one thing that when you're in law school, you don't realize how much of your job as an attorney, at least if you're doing litigation, is really going to be almost like an investigator, because you have to review the documents. You need to know what happened and try to piece it back together in some semblance and make some sense of it under the law.
Yeah. Yep. And also when you're, if you're preparing a case for trial, you want to be able to explain to a jury what happened. And sometimes without actually seeing it or speaking to all of the witnesses yourself, like just taking it from paper sometimes is hard to assimilate it in your brain so that you can explain it to someone else. So it's really important to talk to the witnesses yourself, to go see what it is yourself so that you can properly explain it to a jury in a way that they'll understand and, be able to envision it in their minds.
I think it's a good lesson for younger attorneys.
Yeah. Just reading a file sometimes is not enough. It's good background to read the file, but really if there's any case that I have, like I have a hard time delegating to other attorneys, even colleagues, if it's a case that I know it's going to go very far in litigation and at some point I'm going to have to argue or present. I want to make sure I do all of the depositions myself. I want to do the majority of the work on the case myself, because then I know it and then I can easily explain it to someone else. It's hard for me if I let somebody else do one of my depositions and then I have to talk about that, because I'm not going to get it from just reading the transcript or.
That is a challenge, and learning to be able to delegate, I think, is a whole other.
A whole other topic.
And it does take a lot of trust between attorneys, and not only trust, but sort of similar mindset, right? Because you need to make sure that they're asking the same kinds of questions that you would ask at a deposition, for instance. So,
correct.
That's interesting. So, what other challenges, other than the delegation, have you faced as an attorney in your career?
Other challenges, I would say, anytime I take on a project or something that I haven't really done before, a new type of law. When I first got admitted to federal court, I would say just like navigating the federal court system and federal practice, because I really, although obviously I took civil procedure in law school, I jumped right into state court and criminal court in the DA's office. And then in my practice, we really didn't have that many federal court cases. It was really only when I started taking on some commercial work that we started being in federal court more often, and which I do really enjoy. I really enjoy being in federal court. It's such a different experience, different atmosphere, there's a lot of differences about it. But it's only, I would say, I think I got admitted to federal court about 10 years ago. So that was just something, and it's not difficult. It's just different. It's just trying to remember back to civil procedure.
It's so much easier than the CPLR.
It totally is. It's just I hadn't done it in so long. So those kind of things. And the judges are very serious about following the rules and the judges' rules, which is great, because sometimes in state court that is actually not the case. So
sometimes it's harder when the judges or the clerks seem to make up the rules as they go along, which is sometimes fine in state court. I won't name names.
That was quite often the case as when I started out in the DA's office. The criminal court judges quite often had their own way of doing things and their own rules. And it was just basically from judge to judge. You kind of just had to find your way. So I was kind of used to that, to the chaos versus the order. But yeah, so that was something, anytime just trying anything new, new areas of law and a different type of fact pattern, because a lot of the types of cases that I have handled in the 20 years that I've been at my firm are very similar type of cases. So you kind of get like in a groove of, oh, this is a ceiling collapse. This is a car accident. This is a rear end. This is, so it's always challenging when you take on something a little bit different. I mean, just navigating, I would say our profession in general is always a little bit of a challenge, and personalities that you come into contact with, and dealing with the various personalities, good and bad, both in your own firm and in other people's firms, and adversaries and judges. And we have a very varied profession in terms of people's personalities. And I would say on the most part, it's very congenial, great people to work with. But there's always the outliers.
There's always those few, right?
And I've had to deal with some of those in my career. So, that's sometimes a challenge as well.
Sometimes you seem to walk into the courtroom and the judge has just gotten up on the wrong side of the bed or something.
Yep.
No matter what you say or how correct you are on the facts of the law, it's not going to be your day that day.
Right. Correct. I've had, as I'm sure have you, I've dealt with some situations in my career where, you have an adversary that you're in a discussion with and they get very loud or, insulting or loud or mean or, and
they try to bully you basically.
Yeah. And you kind of have to just let it roll off your back and not sink to their level. But I've had situations where I've had attorneys on the phone quite recently with my paralegals who have gotten very upset, tears because they were spoken to in a certain way, which is just not acceptable. But it's hard because as someone who's been practicing for a while, I hate to say you get used to it, but maybe you get used to it and you just don't let it bother you as much as, younger, the younger paralegals and people starting out in the profession, which maybe would take it a little bit personally. You kind of just can't take it personally. I
guess for good or for bad, you become hardened to it a bit. So
right. So yeah, dealing with personalities, I would say, is sometimes a challenge also.
So something I love about you, Liz, is that you continue to take on new challenges, including that you recently sat for the Delaware bar and passed. So first of all, congratulations. That's
Thank
amazing.
you.
And also, tell us a little bit about that. What drove you to sit for the Delaware bar, and what was the experience like 20 years plus after the fact of first taking the New York bar?
Yeah, well, so it was a little bit of a journey. I have some very close family and friends in the Delaware, Maryland area, and I've been spending a lot of time down there in the last 10 years or so. And so just getting the idea of what the future might hold, wanting to open up some possibilities for myself in the future, kind of took it upon myself not only to take the Delaware bar, but also to get admitted in Maryland, which actually Maryland was much easier because as an attorney, an already admitted attorney, they actually changed their law right when I was looking to get admitted. They did used to require an exam. It was like a one-day attorney exam. But right when I was applying, the clerk actually called me and said, we're changing the law in the next 6 months. Do you want to just withdraw your application and put it in? And 6 months from now, you'll just be able to do like an online thing, like open book online test, versus like studying and actually taking a test. So I said, yes, sure. No rush. So I withdrew my application, and then I just did the little online thing, which was great. And I did that before COVID. But the funny thing was when I went to put my application in for that, and then also when I was putting my application in for Delaware, I couldn't access my MPRE score anymore, the professional responsibility, because it was so old. And I guess they've changed the passing score since we took it anyway. So, and I didn't know what it was, and I had nothing to tell me what it was, and I couldn't find it. So I had to retake the MPRE. So that was the first thing I had to do in my journey after having passed the little online thing for Maryland. But I took the MPRE like right before the world shut down, like March 13th, 2020.
Oh, wow.
In a room where it was crammed in room, like probably like the germiest place in all of New York City on March 13th, 2020, with these people on computers. And that was so I had never really taken any of those tests on a computer.
No.
Back in the day, when I took the MPRE, it was in a, with a blue book, probably in a, it wasn't at Javits, but it was in a gym somewhere. So just like having to take it on the computer and the stress of whatever, and also knowing that I think I'm a very ethical attorney, but like needing to know what the rules of professional responsibility were again to pass a test on it. I was worried, God forbid I didn't pass that, right? How horrible does that look for my current career? So the pressure was on, but I did pass. I got it. And so I got admitted to Maryland, and then I had my application in for Delaware, which is, they don't have any little nice open book 50 question test. You have to, it's very involved for Delaware. So it was a huge challenge. I was ready to take it on in 2020, and then they just canceled the whole exam. I had started studying, signed up for Barbary again.
Oh my goodness.
And, a lot of states canceled or postponed their exams. New York postponed, I think, until the fall. And actually, one of my paralegals was taking her second bar. She was looking to move to Louisiana. So she was taking the Louisiana bar, and her bar got postponed. But Delaware only gives it once a year. And they just canceled it outright. There was no reschedule. And they put it over to 2021. So I had started studying, and then I had stopped, and then I started again the following year. And then that test was also on the computer, videotaped. They have like a camera on you.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So again, when I took the bar exam 20 years ago, it was on paper at the Javits Center, and you went. So no, this test, you were sitting there, you were being videotaped the whole time. You couldn't look away from the camera. You couldn't like reach over to something. And it was 3 days.
Oh my goodness.
And since I had taken the bar exam, they now have these practical tests. They call it the MPT, like the multi-state practice test, which we had never taken, or I had never taken. And so you have to do like a lawyerly thing, like write a memo or write a letter to a client or something of that nature. And so another thing where I was like, if I can't pass this part of the test, what have I been doing for the last 20 years? But then also the pressure,
it also seems, practicing attorney, you feel like you should be able to waive that part of the test. Practicing.
It would be nice, but they didn't. There was no. They weren't waiving anything. So anyway, long story short, I passed. I was very happy, and I was able to get admitted last year, and so I was very proud of myself. It's a small community of lawyers in Delaware, and I got to sign the original book that John Adams has signed. He's number 2 in the role.
Oh wow!
and I'm number 6989. So it's very small compared to the number of attorneys that we have in New York.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's, yeah, I'm sure, I don't know the numbers of how many people take the bar exam and pass in New York each year, but it's very small. It's a very small community. So they're super honored to be among the Delaware bar these days.
Yeah, and I imagine the number of women who are members of the Delaware bar is even more minuscule.
Yes, I don't know the percentage, but I think it is. I would say they are making a tremendous push in Delaware. They have a tremendous number of women in the judiciary, and they really actually attending a conference later this week. A women bar conference in Delaware that I went to last year. So it's a very tight knit group.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's so small. Everybody knows each other, but a lot of members of the judiciary are female.
Well, that's an important. It also shows the importance of maybe having a female litigator, representing you, because there is something to seeing someone else, seeing the same in front of you, right? I think that sometimes, for instance, when we go to court, even here in New York, depending on the case, either my partner who's a male or I will argue depending on the judge, because sometimes there is that inherent bias that, is not really intentional, but exists. And if you know that or can read that, you should probably use it to your advantage for the client.
Yeah. Yep.
That's our feeling, which might be a little bit controversial, but
I agree. Whatever works.
No, it's representation.
You look that up, your my judge went to Fordham. Oh, we have that in common. My judge,
whatever you have in common, you need to try to, to use it for your
advantage. Definitely.
So let's see. We've gone over your background, your new Delaware bar, which is super exciting. What do you value most about having your law degree?
I think that I value like all of the hard work that has gone into it, and a little like proud of myself for having done what I've done through the years in terms of school and how hard it was to get. I don't know that, like, sometimes there's so many lawyers, right? So especially like we said in New York, there are so many lawyers, but it's really hard work to do well in college and to get into law school, and then to have success in whatever area of law you're looking to practice. So I think I'm just grateful, and I value the whole package of what it's taken me to get here, and what it takes every day to keep going, and and learning new things. And like I said, my little challenge for myself during the COVID times of getting admitted in other states. I think, I'm grateful, and I value my degree from Fordham and my history there with my family, and the alumni connections that the school that I have with the school, and just, being able to give back to young lawyers and people who are looking to be law students, like you're doing, like giving the benefit of your experience to others to, put them on a path. So that's really it. I have a paralegal working for me now this is her last week. She's off to start her law school journey. She's taking the LSAT and studying for that. And so I've been trying to give her all my worldly advice.
Wonderful. Paying it forward a bit. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Sometimes she listens to me, sometimes she doesn't, but that, that I just feel like we have everybody who is practicing has, like you say, like has a story and has a journey that's gotten them to where they are. And I think it's very beneficial to the younger generation to just hear what other people's paths and stories are, and to get encouragement and, maybe a little kick in the, to do what they need to do. And so.
I love that. And I love that everyone actually has a bit of a different story, and it actually is not cookie cutter. And I think that's actually amazing.
Yep. And even in practice, everybody has a different story, right? Like who has kids and has an obligation to run home and make sure that they get fed and they go to their activities, and then who has, their, other activities, or, their own, like, extracurriculars in terms of their law practice and their volunteer obligations and everything else. Everybody has like a different story, not only backstory, but like day-to-day story of how they make it work in their practice. And everybody has their own challenges, whether they're like caring for an elderly parent or, someone who's ill, or, however we all make it work is important to hear. It's encouraging to others who might be in the same situation. So.
Yeah, and that leads actually to my next question is that I know you do have a wonderful full life outside of work as well. And how do you balance it all? Do you feel like you're balancing it, or, how do you juggle it, I guess? Might be the better term.
Well, I will say, although I am disappointed to not be in court as often, I will say that the whole the changes that have come about as a result of COVID in terms of having more flexibility with the work from home situation. I was always a big proponent of work from home, because for me personally, I am tremendously more productive if I'm working from home, because I don't have anyone coming in my office and bothering me and ringing me and this and that and this question. If I can just not talk to anybody for a day, I can get so much work done. So I will say, I think it's my partners were a little bit slow to come around to the work from home, because in their mind, if you weren't in the office, you weren't working, which was never me. I was always the person, I'm going to work no matter where.
You're self-motivated to work, so you don't need
and I know what needs to be done, and I can get it done sometimes way more efficiently if I'm not in the office. So that has been a tremendous help to me in balancing everything that I have going on, in terms of the flexibility of today I can work from home, tomorrow I'll be in the office, managing my schedule that way. It's made me extremely productive, and it's just really has been terrific. And I'm sure you see, I don't have any kids, but I have 2 nieces and 2 nephews. And so I do like to go to the dance recital or the theater production or whatever it may be. And if it happens to be on, Thursday at 5:00 and it's in Westchester and I live in Manhattan, if I can work from home in the day and then get out of here a little bit early, I can make it to things like that, which is terrific, because I don't have to take a whole day off from work, or I don't have to miss it. So I get to go to all the things, and I still get all my work done. And so that's been really, really, really great in managing schedules and stuff. And, like going to a conference, like a CLE or like the Women's Bar Conference, with the ability to work from home and work remotely. And, if there's a break, I can work for an hour and I can do whatever. And then I can work at night. And And I don't mind working on the weekends or whenever, as long as I can fit it all in. So.
Yeah, no, I do think that's a great thing about our profession, that we're lucky because our work doesn't really require us to be somewhere. It's not like, if it's someone who works at the grocery store, if they're not at the grocery store they can't do their job. We actually have this huge benefit that
Yep.
we can get our work done, usually as long as we have a computer,
Right.
of some sort, which is, it's a huge luxury. So
yeah.
Really
it's a little different with litigation, especially now that things are, coming back in person, because there will be in-person court appearances and trials and whatnot. But, that's on it's pretty rare, even
it's
still.
not every day.
No, right. And then you work around that. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's huge. I know during the pandemic, for the first, we mentioned off camera that, I have a Westchester office, that we got that during the pandemic. For the first, I don't know, 6 or 7 months, I was working in my bedroom of my house because I didn't have another. We had one office, but my husband was using that, and so I was working in the bedroom. And so I took an office in Croton, where I live, so that it would, be able to have a place to go to and actually practice, because working literally from my house wasn't working with 3 children.
Right. You have a different situation, right? Totally. I get that. Yeah. And also then you didn't have the commute, right? Because that's the other thing. So when you have a busy extracurricular life, that's not just your job, the hours that you spend doing any kind of commute where you can't be multitasking and working at the same time is such wasted time in a day. And if you have to drive, you really, like, all you can do, which you really aren't supposed to be doing, but is be on the phone, right? So you can make some calls if you're driving. But like if you're on a train, whatever, you can, and to get some work done. But those hours of commuting, if you shave those off, it's huge, because there's so much other stuff you can do.
Yeah, no, it's a big saver.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have 3 what are supposed to be rapid fire questions. They don't always turn out that way, but they're supposed to be to wrap up. The first one, I think you might have already answered, but let's see if your answer is any different now. If you couldn't be an attorney and didn't go to law school, what career would you have chosen?
Oh, okay. So you were going to hold me to the horseback riding instructor, right?
No, you can choose something else.
Okay. I think I would probably work in like a store, some kind of retail, fashion, selling things. That I actually, it's funny, I had a passing thought about this the other day. I really I do have a passion for not just shopping for myself, but also for helping others in selecting their purchases. I really do. I think I would enjoy that a lot, whether it be clothing or furniture or anything. I think I would like to be in some kind of a retail job.
Like a buyer?
Yeah, buyer, be a buyer for a department store or something. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Number 2, what is the one thing you wish you knew before you graduated law school that you know now? Or like when you graduated law school. So like
yeah. I was pretty fortunate because I had such a good dad who really propelled me in very good directions in terms of putting me on the track for my career. But I think I'm like a worrier. Like I worry about everything, and sometimes to the extreme. It's just my personality. So I think I would want to know that it kind of all works out the way it's supposed to. Maybe you don't get into the school that you thought you wanted to go to, but you get into another school, and guess what? That school winds up opening up doors that you never even thought, you never imagined. And then you meet someone else and it leads to meeting someone else and it puts you on the path. I think I would just want to know, not to stress so much about the small stuff. and that it will work out. Like the universe has your back. It'll work out the way it's supposed to.
It'll work out. I like that. That's
Yeah.
also a common thread I've heard from others. And I think one that's really important for younger people to hear repeatedly, that, getting one question wrong on your LSAT, or, going to a different school, or taking a different job, it's okay. Like your career's not dead in the water at the beginning. Like you can change. Things
it's not defined by that one score or that one test or that one, if you didn't get the score on your LSAT that you wanted to get because you really wanted to go to Harvard, that's not going to be the end.
I don't know if the eye roll will come through on the audio tape. But...
I mean, I did go to law school. Undergrad with someone who wanted to go to Harvard, and she got in. So, and she turned them down. Actually, I will say. But that's a great goal. But then sometimes you wind up going to a different school, and life works out better than you could have imagined because you went to that other school versus. So you just don't know, like to just not sweat the small stuff and keep going, just keep moving forward, and it will work out. Don't let it defeat you.
And would you recommend a law career to women considering law school today?
Yes, definitely. I think it's a tremendous career for anyone, but especially for women, and there's so much room in the profession for women, and I would say need for women in the profession, and like we said, I think there's more flexibility in the profession these days than there was perhaps 10, 20 years ago. So in terms of, having a family life and a work life, there definitely is so much opportunity. So yes, I would.
Great. Thank you so much for being with us today, Liz. This has been so much fun.
Okay. Thanks so much for having me. It was wonderful.
You've been listening to Success in Brief with your host, Rosanne Felicello. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, and sharing the show with others. You can catch prior episodes at www.felicellolaw.com and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Twitter, and more.